Bring in Virginia Representative Rob Wittman. He's on the House Armed Services Committee and the Select Committee on China. I do want to start with China real quick. President Biden met the Chinese president last week, looking for areas to cooperate and opening lines of communication. Now, Chinese officials are hosting Arab nations like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, even the Palestinian Authority in Beijing. You know, the Chinese talking about working at a peace agreement for the Middle East. What do you make of all of this?
Well, we know that China is a transactional nation. They're opportunistic. They're not going to do anything that's in the benefit of the world. It's all going to be for the benefit of China. And for them, in this occasion, to call the people of the Middle East their brothers and sisters is laughable. This is not a serious attempt by China to do anything constructive in the Middle East. It is only trying to gain a foothold there for their advantage in the future, Edward. And I just don't see how in any way, shape, or form the world looks at this as a serious attempt by Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party at having any meaningful impact in the Middle East.
Right. And you know, you talked about this, you alluded to it a little bit. China wants to replace the U.S. as the major power on the planet. Is cultivating part of these Arab relationships part of that?
Absolutely. You look at what they're doing around the globe, whether it's in South America, Africa, they are looking to gain an advantage, an influence in those nations. They're transactional. They're doing things to their benefit. They want to displace the United States. They want to do things to weaken the United States. They want to do things that weakens any effort by the United States or any friends and allies of the United States. Their effort is all about China. Xi is a leader that seeks power and will do anything to achieve it.
So are the Chinese outmaneuvering then the U.S. Or President Biden specifically?
Yes, in many ways they are, but it shouldn't weaken our resolve to make sure that we counter what China does around the world, especially with what they're doing to try to create economic ties with nations around the world. We are the world leader economically, and we should act that way. We should make sure that our economic policies look to expand trade with other nations. We want to make sure our strategic policies seek partnerships with other nations to make sure we have a network that will deter China in many places around the world, but especially the Asia Pacific. We are well suited to do that. We have many advantages that China just doesn't have. We need to use everything in our playbook to do that. And the United States House of Representatives needs to be the lead in that.
And is that sort of the sad state of things right now? I mean, is the president being aggressive enough with those relationships that you've talked about to counter what China's doing?
And he is not. And House Republicans, though, in our National Defense Authorization Act this year are doing just those things to make sure we are taking the lead to counter China. But you saw the president's budget that came over. It was weak. It did not address the full extent of the threats from China. House Republicans are committed to make sure we deter China, both through the House Armed Services Committee and other efforts across the spectrum.
So, Representative Wittman, I want to talk about Israel now for a moment. The president says that we're close to a deal over hostages. How much should be given up, do you believe, to get these hostages back?
Well, the horrific and barbaric attacks of October 7th show that Hamas is focused on trying to destroy Israel. It's a good first step to have hostages released. There are about 240 of them there now. But not all 240 are going to be released. So, Ed, we can't forget what is yet to be done. Right. Let's make sure all the hostages are released. Let's make sure that Hamas is never capable of perpetrating these horrific acts of terrorism as we saw on October 7th.
So Representative, in the last 30 seconds we have, is this negotiating with terrorists?
Well, it's I believe, an effort to try to get some of these hostages back. That needs to happen. Listen, our effort here in the House is to make sure, too, we're supporting Israel's effort. Israel aid needs to be done. House has passed its bill. The Senate needs to pass their bill, and the president needs to sign it into law. That's our big step that we can do to help Israel in their battle against the terrorists of Hamas.
Congressman Rob Wittman from Virginia, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.